Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I'm Julianne Spark, Manager Software Solutions for WA, and welcome to our licensing update this morning. Joining me from the Data3 team this morning are Nicole, Dale, Sally, Damien, Manisha and Nancy. We also have Ben Belgic, who's our Dynamics Specialist from Microsoft. And we're also very lucky to have Peter Schmidt, Dynamics and Power Platform Business Solutions Specialist. Moderating this event is Kerry and Caitlin from our events team at Data3. So what's on the agenda this morning? On the agenda, Dale will be taking us through a licensing update. We also have Damien, who will be running us through the TrueUp anniversary process and timeline, and Peter is presenting to us on the Power Platform. I would like to remind you all that the session will be recorded. We will be sending the presentation out to all attendees after the event, and there will be a Q&A at the end. So can I ask you all to pop questions into the chat panel? Kerry and Caitlin will be managing that chat, and then we will respond to it at the end. Okay, so now I'd like to pass over to the lovely Dale. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks very much, Julianne. So today we'll be going through just a couple of licensing updates, a couple of points that we've seen in the news that may be topical. So first of all, there was an announcement at the end of last year that the product terms documents would be discontinued. So from the 1st of February, all of the details around the T's and C's of your product licensing are now available on a link on a site. You can find the details to that site there. It gives a list of all of the per product, per licensing agreement type, and all the details as to how to buy on that site. Then in terms of Power Apps and Power Automate, a new guide was issued in December, so we've shared the details there as well if you click through the links there. The only update that we've seen around rebranding is CDS, so Common Data Service, which you see referenced in a lot of the Dynamics documentation and the Power Platforms, has now been rebranded as Dataverse. We've also seen an announcement that Microsoft has launched the Employee Experience Platform, or EXP, branded as Microsoft Viva. So Viva is a platform of technology solutions that provides users support and resources that integrate into the technology that they use in their day-to-day work. And the vision around this platform is to bring communications, knowledge, learning, resources, and insights into an integrated experience for individual users and their teams. If you go through the link, there's details as to what that entails. We've seen the ERP price is about $5 per user per month. So there's quite a lot of information if you walk through that link on that blog. Then we've also seen that there is an update to a document which was issued called around the qualified, what is deemed a qualified device and a qualified user. And this goes into a little bit more detail than the contracts that were issued in October 2019. So it just outlines what is things like what is an unmanaged device and what are considered industry devices. And there's some great Q&As, questions at the end of the document to cite some examples that you may find interesting. Then there was also the issue of a robotic process automation document, which defines how RPA differs from the use of bots. We're seeing that more and more in the marketplace as it pertains to licensing requirements. So what we see all the time, as you know, is diversification in IT means constantly relooking at the terms and conditions of your licensing and how these impact on those terms and conditions. So this document unpacks the implications of M365 requirements for what's deemed unattended licenses and is designed specifically around bots and RPA. Then finally, there is a link here as well around the Azure Stack hub licensing. So those of you who've had Azure Stack before, this is just an update on the latest version and the capabilities there. And so those are the updates that we've seen in the news. And from there, I'm going to hand over to Damien.
Thank you, Dale. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Damien Brichot. I'm the Account Executive Software Specialist working at Data3, and I will be your host for the next few slides, which relates to your Microsoft TrueUp 2021. So these slides represent quite a journey. It's the first anniversary with Data3, and first of all, on behalf of the Data3 team, we would like to recognize and say thank you to all of the WA government agencies and individuals for your collaboration, trust, and support. So throughout the TrueUp process, your Data3 account executive will walk you through the process, of course, and make some recommendations where necessary. We understand that obtaining counts of your TrueUp and so forth can be daunting at times and also consuming tasks. So we'll work with you to help streamline the process. Our goal is to simplify the process for you, number one, by completing accurate submission of the paperwork, the annual TrueUp report, and the pre-validation before it goes to Microsoft. Number two, by assisting you with the TrueUp submission, creating the initial workbook and calculators, so that will come from Data3, and discuss any of your requirements with each agency. And number three, during the TrueUp process, your Data3 account executive will ensure that you're aware of your software assurance benefits and how it can be utilized. This TrueUp process is also going to give you a chance to ensure you're managing and tracking your licenses effectively. When you know what software you have and where you're actually using it, you can plan better, have better visibility into your business, improve business decision making, and ultimately get more value out of your software investment. These slides represent the team allocated for your Microsoft TrueUp 2021, led by Michelle, the team leader for the software support team, and supported by Nancy and Manisha, our senior customer support representative. They'll be supporting the account executive with the preparation of the initial workbooks and calculation. They will also work on creating your quotes, processing your purchase orders, and anniversary payment. In the middle, led by Pietro, supported by Jennifer, Microsoft contract specialist, they would ensure contract governance and pre-validation of your TrueUps before submission to Microsoft, which is a critical step. Led by Julian Spark, I believe some of you can see some familiar names. Sally, Nicole, Dale, and myself will assist with managing the overall TrueUp expectation and communication and coordination of the process, providing you support where required, working closely with the customer support representative and the Microsoft contract team. So this slide represents the overview of the timelines. Now, in the next few slides, we'll deep dive into each date, also considered as milestone. As of today, you can expect your Data3 account executive actively connected with you and discussing your process and discussing your workbook and calculator if available today. If you haven't heard from us, rest assured that we'll be in contact with you very shortly. So these slides, by the 5th of March, you can expect that all agencies would have been provided with their workbook/calculator, and a one-on-one review would have been completed with your account executive. This is very important. Your workbook calculator is not an official quote. It allows us to work through to provide you the quote, but it is not an official quote. Your workbook will include your online reservations, online services, and on-premise software. The TrueUp shouldn't be seen simply as a reporting exercise, but as an opportunity to optimize your Microsoft licenses consumption and spend. There may actually be an opportunity to take advantage of newer product version, more cost-effective licensing, and subscription options. And again, speak to your Data3 account executive about that. One important point is, as you start having those conversations, if you could potentially identify throughout this timeline, if any of the key stakeholders that may be approving are taking leave or may not be available during that time frame, can you please just let your account executive know so we can work around that and ensure that we help you throughout the milestones. By the 26th of March, we would expect that all the agencies have returned the completed workbooks. Of course, we will contact you to answer any question, and I encourage you to contact your account executive if you have any question throughout that process. In your workbook, please ensure that you have considered all lines of Microsoft software licenses, including enterprise products, server and cloud products under your SCE, for example, online services. And for your online services eligible for true-ups, you must also account for any license reservation that have not yet been reconciled in the pre-of the true-up order. And you can confirm that by looking into your volume licensing service center. If you don't know how to access your portal, please contact your Data3 account executive. You will need to account for any additional products, and you may want to look at transitioning some license and software assurance products to a subscription. And of course, any license reductions for eligible licenses. Once we have received your completed true-up workbook, by the 9th of April, all agencies can expect to have received the Data3 Microsoft quotation. And on that, of course, we recommend that you review the quote accordingly prior submitting your purchase order. Also, think about if there has been any changes between the time you submitted the workbook and the time you received the quote. For example, any new reservation. If the answer is yes, then speak to your account executive immediately. Also, because we are approaching the blackout period, and more on that in a moment, speak to your account executive about purchasing extras for online services. This can prevent an expected delay down the track. By the 23rd of April, we should expect that your workbook calculator is completed, your purchase order has been submitted to your Data3 account executive, and your updated statement is completed. In that sense, we're also approaching the blackout period. We are approximately 1 week away. This is a mandated Microsoft blackout period that officially starts on the 30th of April, or 30 days prior your anniversary date. Please speak with your account executive for additional details on the blackout period. By this time, we would expect no further changes. The Data3 team will then submit your true-up order to Microsoft. This process must be completed by Data3 and your account executive team by the 30th of April. And congratulations, by then you have completed the true-up order. By this time, no reservation is to be submitted. What if you place reservation during the blackout period? If you haven't discussed this prior with your account executive, it may cause some delay for the submission, as it will actually change the true-up quote and impact the annual billing. So please, again, speak to your account executive if you need more clarification on the blackout period process and how to do for exception. Following the true-up completion, Data3 will assist with the anniversary payment annual quote. We will provide you with a quote no later than the 5th of May, 2021. All agencies will have 3 weeks to submit the purchase order back to Data3 account executive no later or by the 24th of May, 2021. Now, please remember, these are deadlines. However, nothing wrong with submitting your workbook, your PO, earlier than those dates. The earlier, the better. So the 1st of June, we've now reached your anniversary date. Congratulations. Your true-up is completed. Purchase order and annual billing have been submitted. You can expect usually a notification from Data3, an email, an acknowledgement of your true-up completion process. And of course, it's time to reconnect with your account executive to talk about 2021 and your Microsoft strategy. Now, this slide is about things to remember. I think I've made a couple of points throughout the presentation, but please note, the workbook is not an official quote. It is also the true process, is also an opportunity to look for optimization. So we will help you in that process where appropriate. The blackout period will start from the 30th of April until the 1st of June. In your workbook, please include all the licenses into your workbook, as explained before. It is a self-audit, and we also need to consider your online services and reservations. If you have nothing to declare, you can then report it by the 26th of March to your account executive as a 0 true-up, and we will then assist you with an updated statement. Even if you have nothing to report, you still have to submit an updated statement, and your account executive will guide you through that process. So just want to talk about the software benefits on the next slide. So we highly recommend the agencies this time around to look at the opportunity to use your benefits, such as your training vouchers and your deployment planning days. So in the workbook, you will receive a snapshot of your current position. I encourage everyone to talk internally within the agencies who might consider to use those training vouchers for training development purposes. Speak to your account executive, of course, on the best way to allocate those vouchers. This slide here includes a few dates, so please keep that in mind, and we will talk you through as we meet with you one-on-one to discuss your true-up process. So now I would like to hand it over to Peter Smith from Microsoft, who will take you through the Microsoft Power Platform updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Good morning to you all. So my name is Peter Schmidt. I've been a Dynamics and Power Platform Business Solutions Specialist for Microsoft here in Perth for the last 5 years. I am very active on LinkedIn. If you want to stay up to date with what's going on the Power Platform, either follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm publishing things most days. There's so much innovation and updates happening to the platform. It's probably the easiest way of keeping on top of it. Now, when I started my career in IT 30 years ago, IT were often seen as the heroes. Business would often have some challenges that IT would come in and create some apps and help make their life easier. But over the years, that reputation has kind of tarnished a little bit. The demands on IT have grown so much that it's outstripped their ability to deal with them. And often then the business has done its own thing in Excel spreadsheets and access databases, etc. So the Power Platform was really Microsoft's attempt at enabling that innovation, but rebuilding that relationship between IT and the business and make IT the heroes again. And I'm going to tell you today on how we've actually been able to do that here in Perth. So for those who've not up to date with what the Power Platform is, there's basically 4 key apps that make it up, and I'll look at those in detail. But the key component is that they are all linked to one another, so they're fully integrated, and they're built on top of this common data service, which, as Dale mentioned earlier, has been rebranded as Microsoft Dataverse. And this is very much an operational data store, but it also links seamlessly to Azure Data Lake, so you've got your analytics data store as well. And that's really key part of businesses' data strategy, is that the time between capturing some data and being able to act on it has effectively, using these tools now, come down to almost zero, in that we can run AI over that data in real time and immediately provide guidance on next best action and things like that. The other component of the Power Platform is the portals, and again, those are very popular in government departments for citizen-facing uses. Now, just quickly, so the 4 apps that make up the Power Platform, we have Power BI, which is our data and analytics tool. Overnight, Gartner published its most recent Magic Quadrant for data and analytics, and Power BI was so far up into the top right-hand corner, they're going to need a bigger Magic Quadrant, I think, next time. It's been there for a while, but it just keeps getting further and further away from the competition, which is great to see. Power Apps, again, we're seeing a lot of growth in that. We've got a few large enterprise customers here in Perth that have actually licensed the Power Platform across the enterprise now and are starting to build tens or hundreds of apps on the platform. One recent bit of news on Power Apps is that Microsoft published Dynamics Power Apps Player for Windows this week in preview. So you can now create model-driven apps that will work offline, and that runs on Windows devices. And I know that's been a huge ask from people, because prior to that, you had to use Android or iOS devices. You can now do that on Windows devices. The other 2 parts of the Power App stack are Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. We're seeing a huge amount of interest in Power Automate, particularly because Microsoft acquired a business called Softomotive in the middle of last year, and that's now been fully integrated into the stack. And that provides robotic process automation. Now, if you're not familiar with that terminology, those of you old enough as me, you might remember we used to have macro recorders in Windows and Excel and things like that. This is like macro recorder on steroids, in that you can basically record yourself performing actions on desktop apps, on cloud-based apps, and it's a way of simulating a user using that application. And so if you've got particularly some of the ERP apps where going through the API and integrating with them is actually quite hard, you can just pretend that you're or imitate a user entering an invoice, as an example, via the interface on the app. And then Power Automate would record that and be able to replay that, obviously substituting the values each time it runs. And that can run as a background automated process with no user intervention. The other tool there is our Process Advisor tool, which is able to actually monitor what users are doing and make suggestions of opportunities of processes that you might wish to automate. We still see a lot of manual things happening in businesses. We see people copying and pasting stuff out of spreadsheets to create monthly reports, or building PowerPoint decks where they're capturing data or from different systems and collating it all together. All of that can be automated with the robotic process automation tool. So we actually think this is a bigger opportunity even than Power Apps, because it applies to every business, irrespective of industry. And just quickly, I'm going to mention the Power Virtual Agents. We're starting to see organisations adopt these now. A lot of them are using them, dipping a toe in the water, using them for things like internal IT support and HR support. But we have got some that are starting to go external with these as well. And there's a lot of investment going in. So keep a lookout for the April 21 release. The release notes for Dynamics and Power Platform are available now, publicly available now, and you can actually deploy these into your sandbox environments if you want to start testing some of your applications prior to the actual release. So the main topic for my presentation today is around governance. It's probably the one thing that I've talked about the most over the last 12 months. And I guess the reason for that is that when you talk about business users developing applications or joint development going on with IT, it often feels IT folks with terror, the thought of letting business users loose on their precious systems. But it doesn't have to be like that. And I'll show you today that Microsoft provide the tools to let you manage and control what they can do, so that there's appropriate guardrails around them. and also give you visibility of what's going on in your environment. I guess the first challenge, though, with implementing a platform rather than implementing, say, an HR system or a finance system is you don't know when you succeeded. We talk about governance as being the means by which you get from your current state to a future state, but how do you define what success is when you're implementing a platform? If you haven't got that goal clarity, then there's no way you can come up with the task clarity about how you're going to do it and the role clarity about who's going to do it. So I'm going to use a story today with Woodside Energy, and they implemented the Power Platform at the start of last year. So they licensed the platform enterprise-wide across 8,500 users. And they set themselves an ambitious goal, which was, how are we going to save the business 50,000 hours a year? Now, I really like that because it's unambiguous. Everybody understands it. It's something that we can easily measure. And each business unit knows how much an hour of their staff's time is worth. So it's very easy for them to convert that time into a dollar value as well. So there is no shortage of resources around on how to set up your Centre of Excellence centre or your Power App Factory. I hear them called various different things by different customers. We've collated all of that information together into what we call a Power Platform Resource Kit. And after this session, Data3 will be distributing that to the attendees. And that's got all the information and more that you would need about how to do this. But what I wanted to do today was, I guess, highlight a few of the key components on that and the key things that you need to do to get started. So Microsoft released what we called our Centre of Excellence Starter Kit. It's freely available on GitHub. It does get updated regularly and enhanced regularly. But there's a number of components to that. And the first one that you should put in is the one that lets you monitor who is doing what in your tenant. And there's a whole collection of Power BI dashboards available within that. Now, the nice thing about the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit is it's actually built on the Power Platform tools. And so you can go in and customize these apps to suit your particular organization. And so one example of what Woodside did was they wanted to measure those 50,000 hours and how they were saving them. And so what they did was, when they were talking to the users about potential apps, they would say to them, well, how many people are going to use this and how much time is it going to save you? And so if, for example, they had their travel and accommodation booking app, they would say, oh, it saves us 2 minutes each booking we make. It's very easy in the COE dashboards to say, well, you've done 1,000 bookings this month, therefore it saved you 2,000 minutes. And that was a simple way of just measuring those 50,000 hours, is just work out the value of an app and then measure how much use it's getting and then just do the math. So that's very simple. The other thing that you, I guess, just wanted to highlight a few key things around governance. Now, I think it's worth saying that as with all things, it's all about people, process and technology. And the technology part of it is actually the easy bit and is probably the third of component of your success. So, but I just wanted to highlight a few key things here. So as well as the Power Platform COE giving you all of the insight into what's going on, there's a few things that, as an admin, that you need to do. So in your tenant, you will have a default environment. You can't block that. It is there. It's really there as a playpen or an innovation environment. And I have seen customers rename it to playpen or innovation environment. The key thing with that is, because it's part of your office environment, the only things the users can access in that would be sort of Excel or SharePoint lists. They wouldn't have any access to any other external systems. You shouldn't be using it for any development purposes. It's just there really for the users to have a play with. And one of the first things you need to do from an admin perspective is stop users creating other environments, because they will. And so IT want to control that, because environments are the things that give you that control in terms of you can control who can access them. And then within each environment, you publish connectors, and these are the things that let you connect to your enterprise systems or other systems. Now, it's worth saying that just because a connector is available, it doesn't mean users can access it. They still need to have access credentials set up for them for that particular system that they're accessing. So you're not diluting your security just by putting a connector in there. You're just enabling those with the right permissions to be able to access that system. The other thing you can do is implement what we call data loss prevention policies, and these control how the connectors can be used and which ones can be used in combination. So just to give you an example, there may be a legitimate reason to listen to Facebook as an example. So you want to hear what people are saying on Facebook, but you definitely don't want to publish information and business information out to Facebook. So with the DLP policy, you can allow traffic in, but you can stop anything going out to Facebook. The other way that we control what users are able to do is that when they create an app, in order to publish it, they have to share it with other users. And what the COE toolkit does is block that. So as soon as they go to attempt to share an app, it intercepts that and reverses it and notifies IT that a business user is trying to share an app. And what that prompts IT to do is to have a conversation with that business user, to have a look at the app, to check that it complies with your policies, it's got naming conventions, that it's documented, etc. And then IT can manage the publication and sharing of that app into a production environment, which is separate to your development or your default environment. And then the final thing I just wanted to mention was that over the last year or so, there's been a lot of effort put in to bring over the professional developers as well. And so we have full application lifecycle management tools and DevOps pipelines and things like that. So you can completely manage the publication and movement of apps to production using the tools that you'd be familiar with if you're doing traditional DevOps, the Visual Studio tools and so on. So for the last few minutes, I just want to talk a little bit about the change management process and business engagement. This is one of the things that Woodside did really well, in that they actually had business analysts that went out to each of the departments and talked to the users and said to them, you know, what are you doing in Access, or what are you doing in Excel, and what's taking you a lot of time? And they were able to triage potential candidate apps. And Woodside actually built a tool that got taken a little bit further and got put into the Centre of Excellence toolkit and was released a couple of months ago, and that's called the Innovation Backlog. And this was really a tool where you could capture user requests for apps, and you could ask relevant questions around, you know, what systems does this need to connect to, how many users are going to be, how much time do you think it's going to save you, etc. And from that, it would help to score the app and allow IT to say, well, okay, that's a low risk app, the business can develop that on their own, or there's a little bit of complexity there, IT can joint develop that with you, or it might be, oh, that's a really hard app, IT will actually build that for you. What Woodside did as well is when the business put their request in, they also put their budget code against it. And so IT would come back to them and say, well, for us to put that app in production, it's going to take us 3 days and it's going to cost you X dollars. And for us to maintain that app for you, it might cost us a day a month, and therefore we're going to bill that back to you. Now, that has worked really well because the business is getting a report on how many hours that app is saving them. They can quickly do the maths and seeing that they're getting a huge return on investment for the time that they're paying IT for that. And so effectively, IT's become a profit center rather than a cost center. And to my point at the start, IT are actually seen as the heroes again, because they're enabling innovation in the business, they're saving the business time, and they have a really good relationship with the business. Now, the other part of what they did was they wanted to foster or train up their users as well. And so they had a very much a sort of structured training program for the users. So the first thing they did was set up In Woodside's case, it was a SharePoint site, but a lot of customers are using team sites as well, where they put all of the information, the sort of information that's in the resource kit that we're going to send you, so that users had all of that at their fingertips. And Teams was particularly good because you've got the chat capability that if they were stuck and wanted to ask a question, they could post it in the chat and hopefully get some peer support from that, or IT could jump in if nobody had answered that. So it was a really simple way of engaging the users. Some organisations have done a little bit of gamification where once the users have attended an app in a day course or have passed one of the free certifications, they get badges, and based on those badges, it then allows them to access the more advanced environments where there's more connectors and functionality available. So in Woodside's case, they said you can't access any of our environments other than default until you've done your exam, and that way you kept those environments relatively clean because people had some idea about what they were doing. And some companies have like a sort of gamification, so you can see who's building apps and which apps are being used. Microsoft have a program called the Champions Program, where if somebody on the front line has built an app that's been successful, then we'll celebrate that and do a case study on them. So one example we're working on at the moment is with WA Police, where one of the frontline officers realised they were doing a lot of paperwork when they were doing curfew checkups. He built a little Power app to do that, and that's going to be going into production in the next week or two, and it's going to save them a lot of time. So there's lots of stories like that. That's a local one that we're hoping to publish soon. But that's really my final tip, is that it is a change of culture. It is about IT working with business, but if you do it right, you can have a huge impact on the business. And just to round out, Woodside at the end of the year totted up, and they did meet their 50,000 hour target. We worked out that they got payback on their licenses within the first 8 months of using the platform. And of course, that's just the first year. They're going to save a lot more in future years because A, they've got more people who know how to build the apps. B, they've got a lot of reusable components in the apps that they can accelerate when they're building new apps, and they've got a lot more experience at doing it now. So yeah, that's my final thing, is that you can be heroes again. Maybe not Superman, but Power Rangers, I think, is our favourite choice for Power Apps developers. So thank you.
Oh, excellent presentation, Peter. Thank you so much. Certainly is a powerful platform, and to have you just share what Woodside did, and even the information in and around what WA Police are doing with the curfew. I know that's, there's a lot of man hours involved in that. But yeah, I was particularly interested in Power Automate and automating some of those manual processes. Our discussions will continue. So for anybody on the call today, if you'd like to continue having those discussions in and around the Power Platform, please do reach out to us. A massive thank you to Damien, who took us through a very detailed approach to the timeline for the anniversary project. That is really important. Thank you very much to Dale for giving us that licensing update. I did want to reiterate around your software assurance vouchers. Please do take advantage of it. It's not often that we get something for complimentary, for free, for nothing. Absolutely take advantage of it. They're sitting there for you. I always say that there is, you're just washing cash down the toilet if you're not taking advantage of it. So reach out to us and take advantage of those vouchers before they expire. Now, I have had an update from Caitlin, and we do have one question in the chat. Please feel free for anybody else while we're answering that question, if you'd like to drop a question into the chat. Caitlin, how are you going to share that question with us so we can see it?
Thanks, Julianne. I'll just read that out for you if you like. So the last blackout period went quite a bit over than what was stipulated. This impacted our business as we could not assign Office 365 licenses to new users. What assurance can you provide or are being taken to ensure that this does not go over again?
Can I address that? Okay, so that's a good question. The reason why there was impact on the last agreement was because it was the renewal. And so before the contract was put in place, the the activities still continue, so you can continue using your infrastructure, but you can't add licenses if there's no agreement associated with that agreement. So you won't have that issue. The 30-day grace or the 30-day blackout period is not a Data 3 requirement. It's a Microsoft requirement, and it's just, as Damien had touched on, it just allows for Microsoft to do a consolidation of what the purchases are for the annual billing, because obviously whatever you true up, you need to report into the next year's billing. So that's why they advocate the 30 days prior to anniversary. That's a blackout period. But to answer the question, that is not an issue in the annual billing.
Great, thanks, Dale. I hope that's answered your question. Any other questions in the chat, Caitlin?
That's all that's come through. Thanks, Julianne.
Okay, lovely. So I just wanted to remind you all that we will be sharing the presentation with you. It will go out to all attendees. A reminder that we're all here to work with you, to help you. Please do reach out. As Damien and Dale have said, we will be in, and I know we have already been in contact with you to take you through your workbooks. Again, a massive thank you to Peter Schmidt. It was a privilege to have you with us on the call this morning. Thank you so much, Peter. So I wish you all a lovely Friday and a wonderful weekend, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everybody. Bye.